Thank you.
That's for me, huh?
So, mermaid in a tower. What a wild idea. Where did that come from?
I mean,
Where did that come from?
doesn't everybody wonder what's in these things? Anybody who grew up in kind of a smaller town, you look at them and it's like, what purpose does it serve? What the hell's in it? How does the water come out of it? What's it for? Do we drink it? Like, and I just would wonder about these giant monolithic structures everywhere. And then it kind of just naturally, my mind is always thinking about weird fantasy stuff. And so then it kind of merged with a small town story that I wanted to tell and became what it was. So, yeah.
How does she get into the tower, though?
I'm not going to tell you that. Are you crazy? That's what the movie's about. Yeah, geez.
That's what we want to know.
Yeah, exactly. How does she get in? Does she get out? We don't know. How does she eat? These are all questions that are addressed in the movie.
She's been there for so long, though.
A long time.
My
Yeah.
goodness.
Very long. Yeah.
Unusual idea. Never heard of it.
You mentioned you've been in. This is a fantasy. Have you done any other fantasy before this? Or any other sci-fi? Is there any other?
I kind of. I mean, all my stuff has that element. I made a movie called The Chariot with John Malkovich, and that was
great.
Yeah, it was about reincarnation, and but in a sci-fi kind of way. And then my last movie before this one was called Mandor Fodor and the Talking Mongoose, which was Simon.
What
Pegg.
is that about? Simon Pegg's great. He's been in sci-fi for Star Trek.
Yeah, Simon's in everything. He's the best. And that was based on a true sort of odd story from the 1930s in England about a talking mongoose named Jeff. And so it had
Check
that
that out.
element. Yeah, it's cool. I did Comic-Con for it a couple years ago. And so, yeah, so I like that kind of stuff. I love fantasy and sci-fi.
When it comes to the sort of mermaid lore, how much research did you do? What sort of did you find out, and how did you make it your own? As
A
well?
decent amount, yeah. I mean, she toes the line between the alluring, kind mermaid and the scary,
Like the one,
man-eating
like
mermaid.
the part of like the siren one. Like the siren.
Yeah, exactly. She definitely goes back and forth. She's both, So yeah, but I think that's kind of accurate. I thought that they got to lure men into the water somehow to eat them, so they have to be able to play both sides.
Did you ever research any like the sailor stories or any like mythology based on like the creature? Or any like you mentioned like you're interested in like lost cities and stuff like that. Any of that stuff?
I've read so much mythology, and it was more about sirens. There's not I feel like the mermaid myths themselves are more recent.
Very far in between them.
Well, they're more recent. Yeah, I feel like the stuff like the sirens. I mean, that was all the way back to the Greek myths, and so I read a lot of that stuff, and I love that stuff from Homer and all that kind of thing.
Iliad and the Odyssey.
Yeah, exactly. So I've read all that stuff many times. I used to go to the library as a kid and ride my bike there and read all the Greek mythology books that I could get my hands on. So, yeah.
How would you describe the tone of the movie? What are you going for? Is it horror? Is it?
No, it's not. It's a fantasy drama, and it's it's like it's got the dark grittiness of sort of the Larry Clark type stuff meets the fantastical elements of Edward Scissorhands. I mean, that's just what I went for. It's a strange one. Yeah.
And we hear that it's sort of a lot of practical effects.
It was all practical.
Could you talk about the sort of creation of the mermaid suit and working with water?
Yeah, I mean, she spent months making this tail, and it looks awesome. And getting Bella into it was a challenge every day on set. I mean, it's very tight. Yeah. So, and then, and it was like I respect Bella a lot for. I write very dialogue-heavy films in general, which are inherently difficult no matter what, because these are deep characters. They're not superficial stuff. So that's already challenging. And then to be a good actor is already challenging. But then to be a good actor with like essentially a condom wrapped around your legs and then in a cold water tank floating while saying lines and being a good actor is hard. And so, I mean, it was definitely, I was in awe of her ability to just kind of make it through, Yeah.
What are the challenges of directing a water-based movie as well?
Just wanting to be cognizant of the physical situation that she was in, you know what I mean? And not pushing too hard, knowing that she's floating in a freezing water tank with a tail on her legs, So it was interesting.
Could have been worse. Could have been the abyss.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah. And we don't have the James Cameron budget, so unfortunately we can't torture our actors quite as much as they probably could on that movie. So yeah.
So the love story aspect, can you go into that a little bit? That's interesting.
Yeah, it's
How
touched
that
upon.
progresses. First,
Yeah,
it's a kind of a love-hate. And then,
definitely. Yeah, it's more of like she decides, she lures him there to eat him, but then she doesn't eat him because he's too pathetic. And then she kind of becomes intrigued by him, and then he's intrigued by her, and he finds, he's trapped in this small town. He's definitely trapped, and he never has the inspiration to get out of this town until he finds someone even more trapped than him, literally. And that's what kind of impels him to finally get his stuff together and get out. So,
That's a cool plot device. I like that.
yeah, that was the point. That was kind of the whole thing. It's like he so pities himself and such a victim, and then he sees somebody who's kind of in worse shape even than him, and he's like, okay, I can rise to that challenge.
Did you come from a small town? Is there any kind of inspiration from that, kind of like in the motif?
Oh yeah, I mean, I grew up in a small town in Florida, and
Whereabouts exactly?
Clearwater.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and
Closer to Pensacola County? A little bit farther down the road?
Yeah, it's the West Coast.
West Coast.
It's part of Pinellas County, but it's more a sense of just nothing matters, and this weird sense of like there's always more important things happening somewhere else, and feeling like I can't get to them or I'm stuck and the world's passing me by. And it's getting that sense in this film. So, yeah.
Why Arkansas?
Sorry?
Good question.
yeah, why?
I'd shot another movie there before. I shot the Malkovich one there actually, and to be quite honest, Arkansas has a really film-friendly tax credit, and this is a film that takes place in a small town, and so I needed a small town in a state with a great tax credit. I already had a production entity there that I had worked with before and in place, and I knew the film commissioner and said, okay, this is a good fit for this, and it was awesome. I mean, when I shot the Malkovich movie a couple years ago, it was in Little Rock, and I didn't love Little Rock. I thought it was kind of terrible. Bentonville was beautiful though. I mean, this town was really nice. I would move there. It was great. It's very, very upscale and great.
You mentioned tax incentives. I don't know what kind of tax incentives you got in Texas, but the Gulf Coast down there in Mobile, Alabama has got 35% on the dollar.
Yeah, Alabama's-
You ever thought about working down there?
Alabama's great, and I have looked at it. Alabama, Mississippi, some of those states have pretty good tax incentives. Texas doesn't have anything. I mean, they do. They just have a
Little bit,
very
right?
high minimum spend there, so it's tough with Texas. But yeah, I would shoot them in Alabama. My production designer came from Alabama to work on the town.
Whereabouts you from? Mobile.
I want to say Mobile.
That's where I'm originally from.
I think
It's
so,
awesome.
yeah. Yeah, he's a great guy. And actually, one of my investors is from Alabama. He's a lovely guy. One of the actors in the movie owns a bunch of car dealerships in
Cool, that's
Alabama.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So Billy's relationship with the policeman, how does that work? I mean, that's kind of a strange.
Yeah, it's an odd one. I mean, it's a small town, so everybody's got their weird relationship with everybody. Yeah, it's more about the policeman's character. He is obsessed with control. He's obsessed with being able to control people, and fascinated with this sort of power of someone who can't say no to him. And so he's latched onto essentially one of the weaker people in the town, at least from the perspective of like doesn't stick up for themselves, and he sees an opportunity to live out his strange sort of fetishistic ideals with this kid. So yeah, it's messed up, man. It's weird.
It sounds very strange.
It's weird.
He doesn't
And there's a
report
mermaid.
to the central office or anything. He just keeps all this.
He just does his own thing. Does what he wants. So yeah. So anyway,
How long did it take you to write the script for this? How much is the
my
story
script
sort of-
writing process is unique. I think about a movie and I plot it and outline it for years, and then the writing itself only takes me about a month. Usually, almost all the time, but it's years and years and years of putting
Planning
it together
it.
in my mind. Yeah, that's the hard part. The actual writing of it's easy for me, at least. So
That's really quick, man. 1 month. Man.
always, I know. Yeah.
How much has the story sort of evolved as you've gone along, or has it stuck to what it was?
It evolved. It's funny, in the script and in the initial film that we shot, there's an extremely dark storyline, like messed up.
But way more than it's actually now.
What's that?
Way more now than when it was now.
No. So when I wrote it, there was a really dark storyline in the tower, and we shot it, and I had to cut it from the final film. I had to turn the film into something that was slightly. It was just too hard. So yeah. Okay, she's telling me. I gotta run.
Will we ever see that?
Yeah, take it easy.
Will we ever see the original?
The director's cut? Maybe. I'll send it to you directly.
Thank you.